Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Voices of Humanity show at prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media. My name is Guy Dawson, and I have been hosting a series of interviews here on the Voices of Humanity show with the Forced Trajectory Project. And my good friend Nisa Sun is here, and we have been talking with families of people who have died at the hands of police. And with this being such a relevant topic right now, of course, around the country, you have lots of protests and all types of things that are very focused on the behavior of the police. And one of the things that we're doing with these podcasts is we're giving families the opportunity to tell their stories. And today we have Carol Luke, and Carol Luke is the mother of TJ McEniry, and he is a man who died at the hands of police in 2015. She is here to talk about her son and her story. And yep, there's a picture of your son. The big guy in the middle, huh?
Yeah.
Are those his two boys on the side of him?
Yeah. And then I got a picture. Then I got a picture of me and his daughter when she was first born. That was the last time he saw her. That was the last time he saw her when she was that little. And then 1 year on his anniversary, 1 year of his death, which fell on Thanksgiving, this was the picture of her there. So he missed all that time with her. So this is her and his two boys up here, my grandsons. That's his three children.
What are their names, Carol? What are your grandkids' names?
At this age, he ain't seen her. This is Caleb and Mateus. Caleb and Mateus, and then Delane. So that's his three children, and the other ones are mine below. And that's what we had for our first Thanksgiving, which was the 1 year anniversary of his death.
Will you tell us the story about what happened with your son?
On November 24th, 2015, approximately a little after really close to 2 a.m. in the morning, Kyle Pryor said that my son's plates did not match his car, so they were cold plates. So Kyle Pryor followed him for a minute, never put on his lights or nothing, and then he lost visual of him. At that time, another officer found visual of him. So in between the officers, they were saying where he was. They never once put on their lights to stop my son or anything else. They cornered him, but by the time one of them did put on their lights, my son was no longer in the car. He was under amphetamines of meth, and he's also bipolar and schizophrenic. He was also dealing with some issues some issues that were kind of personal, because he's really being affected by it at the time. And my son got out of the car, and the car was going down Katy toward Maryland Parkway. And the one officer, he stopped the car because the car was creeping like. But the people at the park said that my son had got out and went to French Oak Apartments. At that time, the police officers went into French Oak Apartments. They had encountered with Jimmy Banks, who was a security guard at French Oak Apartments, and Jimmy Banks was exiting my son out of the premises at that time. In Jimmy Banks' statement, he says several times, whatever my son had in his hand, it was a cell phone, iPad, or something, it was lit up. He says that several times in his statement, that whatever my son had in his hands, it was lit up. You know, he makes that statement 3 or 4 times clear. When Kyle Pryor told my son to walk over to the front where the car was, he had his gun drawn on my son. Like I said, my son being schizophrenic and also under meth, he sort of backed it up from him because he had his gun already drawn, threatening to shoot my son from the beginning. And my son kind of panicked, and he started walking backwards at a fast pace, which they considered at that time was a run. But my son kept saying, "Oh my God, I didn't do nothing. I didn't do nothing." And the cop is like, "Let me see your hands. Let me see your hands." But my son is panicking because this cop has got his gun drawn, you know. And right behind my son was an entrance where the security gate opens and closes. They've got a little entrance there. the little entrance there, like when the security gate opens and closes. Well, there's 2 block walls, the big wrought iron fence, and then the wrought iron fence up front where the security gates go into. And my son backed into there. It's probably about 2.5 foot opening. And Kyle Pryor went with my son, with his gun still drawn at this time. My son was in between 2 block walls in the corner of Frank Choke Apartments on his hands and knees. When my son started doing a fast walking backwards, Kyle Pryor called for backup, a code red. Officer Nord, which was the second officer that got there, in his statement, he said he believed my son and Kyle Pryor was in a physical altercation prior to getting there because his radio went staticky for about 3 seconds. So, and in his statement, he says that he had only been there for like a minute from the time, a second from the time he got there to where my son was tased, before they opened fire. He says it was approximately 1 second. So that's how quick everything moved. But he was the first one to scream, gun. When the security guards again said whatever my son had in his hands, it was a phone, an iPad, or something, and it was lit up. Jimmy Banks, the security guard, has spent more time with my son than the cops did in that split few seconds. So the security guard knew more what my son had in his hand than that cop that just approached my son backing up. And after the public hearing and everything, I asked Lieutenant Hutler, I said, I don't see it. And he says, when you're ready to see it, let me know. But by that time, I had already been through so much other stuff, I just couldn't go no more. But when I did ask him to look at it, he brought me over to Boulder Command because he no longer worked for the FIT team. So he went to as a Lieutenant Hutler at the Boulder Command, and he showed it to me. And I wish I would have saw it before. Because whatever my son had in his hand, in the middle of his tase, he laid it flat, and he lifted his hand straight up. He never pointed nothing, yet he lifted it straight down or straight up. They said that the taser only hit him 1 time, so he was not in full depth of the taser. Where the papers, the autopsy shows the 2 probes hit my son. So everything I have contradicted 2 of by their own statements. They tased him. 3 seconds later, they opened fire. By law, they're supposed to wait 4 seconds. They did not wait that 4 seconds. And then after they shot my son 8 times, the other 2 officers went in there with Kyle Pryor, where they were, Donald Sutton and Robert Norris went in there with my son. At that time, my son had no movement. Robert Nord was observed putting the handcuffs on my son, and I saw him moving my son's hands and moving his fingers and everything, different ways while he was putting handcuffs on him. And there was no reaction from my son. But after they handcuffed him, they picked my son up and they moved him through that 2.5 foot opening. And at one of their statements, they said, somewhere on this paper, on this thing, it said they felt like the paramedics would not have no room in to treat my son. But yet, the 3 officers made it through. So why would not the medical professionals make it through this way? They did move his body. And that was several things that I asked during the public hearing. Was 1, do you automatically get out holding a gun threatening to shoot somebody from the beginning? 2, officers' Nord judgment was already messed up because he thought Kyle Pryor and my son was in a physical fight. Didn't they mess up his judgment? During these things, I was asking at the beginning, to Lieutenant Hutler, saying, no, that didn't happen, this didn't happen. But I was bringing him to the page where each and everything did happen. So you can't sit and tell me it didn't happen when I'm sitting here going through all the papers, morning, noon, and night, driving myself pretty much insane and trying to prove my son's innocence, And so after I told them all that, I said, and Robert Nord's judgment being messed up, and plus the fact you're supposed to wait 4 seconds after tasing only 3, and then you move the body. There was so much done wrong in it, and it was devastating. They gave me an ombudsman right before the public hearing, and I was fortunate because I got a lot of videos and a flash drive and stuff to show. But So I have a lot more information what some people did. Also, I hired an attorney, and he quit 2 months before the trial started, which is really saddening that I was not able to get the justice that I deserved, because this attorney withdrew in October stating that client attorney privileges have been broken, which, when he looked at it, after I had met with him, after I met with Brenton Mason, this is some of the stuff they wanted to ask me about my son. When was the last time I saw him? How many times I see him within the last 5 years? Where did we see him? And so went on, to be, please identify yourself, give the full name, and then it says, my loss of companionship, my loss of society, my loss of affection, my loss of closeness, my loss of guidance, loss of nourishing, and loss of economic dependency. These are questions they wanted me to prove for my son. And one was did he go to mental health counseling and things like that? And did I go after that? And I told him yes. And then they wanted phone numbers and stuff of places I had done. They wanted my son's financial support for the last 3 years. They wanted all telephone contact records. They wanted all text message records, all Facebook and all Messenger messages from my son. And they said that if I had news of his psychiatrist, they wanted 5 years background. And then, it was just like, please state the last time and date the plaintiff spoke with Thomas McEniry prior to the alleged occurrence and provide specific regards said conversation. Please state the detailed plaintiff's knowledge regarding any health psychiatric issues that Thomas McEniry suffered in the last 5 years. Please state how many times in the last 3 years prior to Thomas McEniry's death that you personally saw Thomas McEniry. Please state how many times in the preceding 5 years that you visited Thomas McEniry. No one claimed and clear that my son had been in prison at one point, and most of that time he was in prison, which was up by Ely, and I was unable to go see him. So by me stating that, it's like them telling me, well, you wasn't even seeing your son. Because why would they ask specific things like that? And then even when I was going over the stuff today, they wanted me to give a statement of his employment release. They wanted me to give a release of his mental health. The blue stickers is the social security numbers that are blocked out. But of his mental health and everything, all records for everything. Billing records, x-rays, drug and alcohol testing, mental health, every doctor's thing that there is. But not only that, they wanted one on myself also. These are the things that they're asking me, the whole time they're asking me to explain my relationship with my son. At which time I was seeing my attorney. I was bringing him all the information. The one thing I could not do was write a letter saying how his death affected me. To write something on how the loss of my son would affect me, it was harder than normal. Because I was not raised with a functional family. Families are very dysfunctional. We all left home at very young ages. I've been on my own since about 13 or 14. My son was my first. He was my first love. He was the first person that loved me. And it was me and him. So he was more than a letter that I could write explaining what I lost. The mental aspect of it, what they bring us through is ridiculous. And then when I met Brent Bryson and gave him all that information, the very next day, I went to Arizona Charlie's and I ate breakfast, and coming out, I got pulled over. And the police took me to jail. They said I had a warrant for using somebody else's player's card. When in reality, it was just the police not allowing me to see Brent Bryson to give the rest of the information I needed. At that time, Brent Bryson thought that mine and his relationship had been broke up because he did tell me to stay out of trouble. But yet I did not do that. But I pled guilty because It was Monday morning and I wanted to get out. They would not let me out of jail. So I pled guilty and I took a plea deal. I stayed out of trouble for 6 months and things like that. But that was the reason Brent Bryson used for withdrawing from my case. When the casino never gave a statement or nothing, it was just apparently an individual who said I had used their player's card and they arrested me. And that was really weird to me, you know, and then right afterwards I got a letter, Brent Bryson withdrawn, and then 2 months later was supposed to be in the trial. So I don't know what all took place during that, but I know it was weird. It was weird.
So there was so many different elements of this that, you know, listening to your story, there was what I heard from it is a little bit of confusion about the fact that your son supposedly pulled a gun and that's the reason why they shot him. And you say that you question that he actually did pull a gun. And you think that maybe he was cornered and they basically didn't know what to do with him. And again, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm trying to giving you some feedback on what I heard as I was listening to what you were saying. So maybe your son was cornered. Police, with him being schizophrenic, the police felt uncomfortable with that, and they felt that the solution may have been to shoot him. Is that kind of on track with what you were explaining?
All 3 officers were rookies. One officer had been there for a while, but he was a correctional officer, and he just became an officer about a year prior. The other one started in March of 2014, and the other one started in November of 2014. And this happened in November 2015. So they were all rookies, all very uneducated. And like I said, Robert Nord's judgment was messed up. He thought that Kyle Pryor, my son, was going to fight. He was going there to rescue another officer when that never happened. So as soon as he got there, he yelled gun. So I don't know. I can't speak for them. But the only thing I can say is in several of the papers I got laid out here in front of me, it states that my son at one time pulled a semi-automatic or something like that, you know, rifle. You know, there's so many different controversy stories to what they're telling me, you know, and from what I'm seeing on paper to what their stories are flipping so many times, basically is what I'm saying, you know, and like I said, even toward the autopsy, they said both prongs didn't hit him. That was the reason why they opened fire, but the autopsy shows were both dead. So at one time they say he did pull it. At one time they say he did. They believed he did it, and you know, it's been hard on me. There's times I've had to take down his pictures. Then I feel like if I took down his pictures, I was taking down. I was putting them in the past, but I had to take them down because all I did was cry for a while. You know, while my son was incarcerated for a couple of years. The only time he was incarcerated, you know, he drew me little things and little hearts and things like that, you know. And I want to get this tattooed on me because it's actually the praying hands, and it says, "You're always in my prayers." This is words taught by his mother. Because I raised TJ Church, you know, and it says the words taught by his mother. And then it says Proverbs 31, and it's a Proverbs 31 woman. It goes out and makes ends meet regardless. You know, she's the one always doing for her family, putting everything else aside. You know, and that's what he saw in me, as a Proverbs 31 mom who raised my children as a single mother on my own. I drove the transit buses for a minute. But, you know, this is the way he looked at me. You know, and then in one of them, he says, this is some of the things I gave them to kind of explain my relationship with him and my son. This one right here, he says to me, he says, "Dear Mom, happy holidays and happy birthday. My cards are early. Christmas is still a month away because my birthday is November 21st. They shot him November 24th. But he says, my card's still early, Christmas still a month away. I had a choice of what holiday cards I wanted. I thought this one was nice. I love you. You're the greatest person alive. If the world were your story, they would take a bow for you. You're my everything. I'm alive today because of you. When I stand strong, years from now, too will be because of you. I love you, Mom. These are some of the things I got. This one, it says, when Obama became president, they had a thing in one of the, that's when they had the movie rentals, blockbusters and things like that you went into. And I saw a picture of Obama there, and he had his writings down below it, some things he had said, and I wanted it. And my son said, a little note from, and then right here he put, their worst nightmare, Thomas McEniry, joking, laughing, haha. And he says, hey, Mom, I told you I would buy this for you, didn't I? Little smiley face. Thank you, Mom, for what you have done for me. You have given me some hope and strength in the last few days, and I think highly of you. These days, with respect, is past due. And he says, Google this song and play it for yourself and think about it. Miss Carole King, You're So Far Away. I didn't listen to it then. I didn't listen to it till today. There's little things we overlook sometimes. And then just that little writing there on the bottom. It's on the very, very bottom of it. You can barely see it, And I Googled it today. And I listened to it. And I cried. Because, it's, you're so far away, and it said at one point or another, if you could take everything, you'd rather be with me, And then this was something he wrote me when he was in prison. He says, Mom, it's time for me to lay off the pen and paper for a while. I hope you like the artwork I've sent you. I love you with all my heart. You'll have an extra body with strong arms and healthy spirits to help you just as soon as I get out. Because I raised my 3 daughters by myself, and he was there during that time. He saw the struggles, and kind of wanted to be that man too to support me. He was a lot of things to me, and I was a lot of things to him. I've still got his baby book with his baby pictures and stuff in it when he was first born. When my mom and my stepdad saw him for the first time, and then him sucking a bottle. And this one is the best one, because this is when he started loving and giving love. And he was kissing me and playing with me, and that was the beginning of learning to love, and bonding. And that's what we did, Then I got pictures of him going to school, Christmas time. And then him and his brother playing. Well, then I got this one. This one was at Thanksgiving time. This one up here on the top was at Thanksgiving time with him and his stepdad. Here's him at Thanksgiving. I'm going to cut a turkey. I got a knife. Ha ha. He's like, I'm going to get you. The laughs and the funs that we had, then when he started learning to drive, and, down to the pictures we had taken in 2013, one with him and his 2 sons. And then him and my father to me, Nicholas, and did some of the goofy pictures. This is his 2 sons at that time. They were younger, And then we did some goofy family pictures like we always do. The girls playing back and forth and things, and this is the funny pictures we did. It's things like this, And it was really awesome, the son being there. And two of his kids have affected mental health issues since then, in this other's pictures. Let's see this one. And the family pictures, of all of us, and then his brother. I'll get it straight. And then this one of me and him. and just hugging me and loving me, and it was a lot to me. He meant a lot to me, and it was taken from me. And the cops never held accountable. They had Lieutenant Hutler at the same time showed me the police cam of where my son laid his hand flat down and then straight up. At the same time, he said, "Ma'am, he said, your son did not intend to die that night. He didn't. My son would have never, even if it was a fake gun, he never would have pointed it at the police. My son was far from wanting to die because he just started living. He went in out of his addiction, went through certain things. He went to prison, he got out, and he was finally starting to live. And, he didn't want to die that night. And they took him from him.
So, Carol, this is 2015. So you're looking at it's been almost 5 years since he passed away. And has there been any progress whatsoever about his case?
Everything was put at a standstill because it was just me and his sisters, and I wouldn't let his sister see some of the stuff, and I didn't know where to go or what to do. And then I went to the attorney, and he withdrew from me 2 months before the trial. It all just shocked me, and I stay at home because I have post-traumatic stress disorders. When I see a police officer, I wonder if that's the one that shot and killed my son, because we don't have no pictures of them. I know their names. I don't have a face. And so every time I go out, if I see a police officer pull the car over, or I see police officers driving by, I panic. I get to where I can't breathe. So I stay home. I don't go places. His oldest son, Caleb, he came to stay with me a couple of weeks ago from Florida. And then my other grandson that stays here, Mateus, Caleb's 19 and Mateus is 17. And this is the first time they spent family time together other than 3 weeks one time in their life, But they're getting to know each other as adult men. And they want me to go places sometimes. And I told them, I said, I'm scared to go anywhere. Even when I went to pick them up from the apartment one time, there was like 3 officers going by with police sirens. And I just panicked and my grandson saw it, and that's not the life I choose to show them. I haven't gotten nothing until I went to the first march on June the 1st of this year, the first protest, when all this started coming about. And by the time I had met the people that protest, I was basically on Fremont Street, coming in Fremont Street where Las Vegas Boulevard is. And there was protesters on one side and the National Guard's on the other side. This gentleman come to me because I had my son's shirt and his little ashes in my hands. And this gentleman come to me. And I told him, he said, "Come on, Mama, let me hear your story." So he kind of walked me through where the protesters were and the National Guard's in the middle of it. And he said, "Come on back over here. And I don't want you to get hurt or anything." So he brought me back where I was. He gave me a hug and he encouraged me, and I gave him a hug. And I told the gentleman to be safe. But about 30 minutes later, my story became his mother's story, because he was shot and killed right after that. 30 minutes after that, 19 times. So the same thing that happened to my son happened to Hoya Gomez's mother. And I still get hairs on my arms today as a first protest. And I was the last one to hug him and talk to him, and that was really, it was really weird, and but I reached out to the family, I met them and everything, and I was there for his mother because I didn't know anything existed where people got together, and they supported each other. I didn't know nothing. I went to grieving counseling, and like I wasn't getting grieving counseling is okay, but it was like I could go through it 5 times, but I learned stuff through it, but it don't take away just the reality of it, and I try to see it through it, but I was able to be there with her when Jeannie, when she protested from Trump Towers down to the federal building. And I was right there in front with her. When I first saw her, I gave her a real big hug. I said, I'm giving you about the hug your son gave me. And I cried a lot with her. We walked down from Trump Towers to the federal building, and I held her son's sign, and she held mine, as we walked and stuff. And we switched back and forth, but it was very special to me to be able to be there for her because of the lack of knowledge I had for anybody to be there for me. And I basically went all these years with it by myself.
Mm.
So I came to the point where I was just isolating and stuff until I did meet Jorge Gomez, and that happened. And then that's how I got in touch with Lisa and Coco and them. And I found this program here that helps people. And that's what I like doing. I like helping people and being there for people. I feel a lot of people's pain because of things I've been through. That I asked God one time, why do I hurt for a few? He says, well, you hurt for a few, I hurt for the multitude. And how can you compare with that? My birthday's the 21st, my grandson's is the 22nd. My son was shot on the 24th of November. Christmas is December 25th. My oldest son, TJ, the one we're talking about, his birthday was December 29th. And my youngest daughter, 5 kids later, was my youngest daughter, Lena. His birthday is December 30th. So as Christmas time got to coming around, I was just hysterical the first, right after it happened. And I was like, God, you have to remove this from me. I can't take it. I can't take it, And the words that came to me was when Jesus died, he did no wrong, yet they still crucified him. So if God watched his son get crucified at the hands of authority who did no wrong, I could overcome what I was going through. And so I really found my strength and stuff in religion through my religion, which is being in Jesus Christ. And he's seen me through a lot. I found my son's baptismal certificate after that and certain things that led me to know that my son was saved and where he went. And the weirdest thing is my 4-year-old granddaughter told my youngest daughter, Lena, the other day, she says, I saw God. And Lena says, you did? And Laura says, yeah. He was with grandma's son, but grandma's son was happy. And she don't go to church or nothing, it was like, wow, out of her mouth, from nowhere this was said. So I found peace in that, but I'm hoping that now that his children are here and everything, and now that I know Lisa, I'm hoping to move forward and have an attorney to go through with my grandchildren, where they'll be able to get justice for their father and be able to be compensated for it. No money will bring back our children, but I don't want to see his children struggling either. Because I'm on disability. I do for them. I take them in where I'm at, and I do what I can do. But Caleb, the 19-year-old, he really don't have nobody because my son and his mom was very young when they met. And her father just died and stuff, and she didn't have no family either. She was the only child, and Caleb was the only child, and so he didn't have nobody, So he called me and come stay here, and my son's not here, and I feel the responsibility of doing for him, because he has no one else, and he's just now entering into the world, but it's hard being on disability too. I'm hoping to get some justice and get some closure for them. Because like I said, 2 of them have been in mental health counseling, and Caleb, he turned to drugs for a period, but he's clean and sober now, and I hope he stays that way. But they've become my heart. They've seen me through a lot, but I don't I was so angry and bitter for so long, and I wondered, why am I having such a hard time? People lose people all the time. I understand that, but I was having an extremely hard time. Then I had to stop and think, well, because I didn't have family. When I had my son, he was mine. He was part of me. Somebody I could hug, love, somebody could love me back. But not only that, but this devastating factor that my son wasn't killed, he was murdered. And I believe that played a big role in it too. And they showed me real fast of the one with Kyle Pryor when he got out, gun on my son. And I didn't see only saw when he kind of contacted my son. The one that me and Nisa saw, it went a little bit more in depth from the time that the cop was behind my son. And it didn't stop at the shooting. It went through where they handcuffed him and moved his body. And it was really hard on me to see my son laying there. But when you're trying to catch the cops, everything they're saying and doing is something I had to mentally do that affects me today in my everyday living. By me just having to prove my relationship with my son or prove them wrong and how they did wrong, because it's like we're up against this police station, we're up against the authorities, and just I don't know, they make it so impossible. Just like I said, even if they're questioning, what was last time I saw my son? How many times have I seen him? What was our last conversation? What did we do together? And things like that. To where they want you to prove every aspect of it. And it's ridiculous. They want all this from us. We're already grieving. So I'm hoping to get closure somewhere. I'm working with Lisa on that. And, we're just waiting for a few things. So.
Well, I remember we had Jeannie on this show, and she actually mentioned what you were talking about, how the two of you had become friends, and under probably some of the worst circumstances that two mothers could endure, you were able to find a friendship in it. I think that that's a wonderful thing, that you now have found a group of people who have an understanding of what it is that you've been going through these years, where you really didn't have anyone and you were pretty much dealing with this all on your own.
And, I can't explain to you the feeling that still comes to me today by that happening the way it did. But I guess in the same way, I talk about my religion and everything. And I believe that was just a way of God showing me a way that I could handle things of a place that was out there for me. Families United for Justice. He allowed me to hear of these things through Jorge's death, because if not, I wouldn't have known about the supports and things that go on. Like I said, I'm so isolated to my house. But with that happening, it opened doors for me to be able to be here today to speak on my son's behalf, for me to be able to be speak on the legislators and things like that. By that happening, it has opened up a lot of doors for me, and I wish a young son wouldn't have to lose his life for all this to come about. I don't, because even to the fact when, I'm sorry, because they say they don't have the cameras at the Foley building where he got shot and killed at the federal building. Well, here's the same papers they picked up for my son. They had video cams of the apartment complex. They took them and put them in the vault, and it was never seen. Nobody never seen them or nothing else. It's the same way they're not, it's the forensic multimedia report. And so the same thing with hers, they didn't release them for me, and they're not wanting to show her theirs either, and so it was weird, but I guess I'm fortunate because the ombudsman then did give me the flash drive, and I'm hoping it's the same flash drive I gave Brent Bryson, but he did give me the flash drive and the police reports and everything, and the security guard statement and the autopsy. I did get a lot of things that parents or family members normally don't get, but I still don't have his items released to me, the things he had on him. I was not able to see my son's body because he was married when my grandson was little. They separated when he was 9 years old. He was 15 No, okay. He was probably about 14 years old when they got back together. And then my son died right after that. So him and his estranged wife, although she had gotten remarried and he had filed for divorce, but he could not locate her, they still gave her his social security. And the police went to her and told her about my son's death. And if my other grandson's mother was not in Florida because they have different mothers, I wouldn't even know my son was dead. And she called Melissa, which is Caleb's mother. Melissa called my daughter. And I wouldn't even know my son was dead if not. And then she blocked me from viewing my son's body because she had all say so. She quit speaking to me. She didn't tell me my son was cremated or nothing. And I tried to get the body out to where I could do it, but she let him stay 31 days so that the state could do it, which I know the state did because she let them stay that long. And then she sold me his ashes. Then she wanted $500 for my son's ashes, you know. So it's all been, you know, like, wow, up and down, up and down. I try not to be bitter, but some days I just hurt so bad. You know, I don't know what to tell any mother or any family member who really goes through this because of what they were saying about my son being a criminal, being this and being that. My son had been arrested a couple of times. He did go to prison once, but he learned from it, you know. But by me, after trying to defend my son in so much, even on the autopsy, it says how much his heart weighed, every mark. I don't know where my son was shot, but I know what the autopsy shows. But I wouldn't wish this on nobody because the things we read, the things we got to go through, the things just stick in our head that never go away. My youngest daughter says, "Mom, quit doing this." No, stop. And at that point, it was me defending my child. Forget the papers, forget the videos. I need to defend my son with everything within me. But now I know the mental aspects of it because, like, just seeing a cop, a freeze, hearing a gunshot. Oh my God. I went down to Georgia to visit mother's son, and my ex-husband fired a gun because they live in the middle of nowhere. You know, the coyotes were coming up or something, and he fired a gun. I just flipped out. I ran and started crying and screaming and just, you know, the things that we face through life after this, you know. You have other children, but it's not the same. It's not the same. You know, my daughter says, "Mom, my birthday will never be the same because hers is December 30th. You
know? And Nisa, I know that people come to you at varying times. They can be as fresh as Jeannie, where her son was just killed a couple of months ago. And then you have someone like Carol, where it's literally been years. I think we interviewed, I can't remember the interview, but one of them, it had been 2007 when this had actually happened. And yet the feelings seem to still be so fresh, no matter what length of time there is. And when you're working with people and they're coming and they want to start to seek the counsel of other people who've experienced what they're going through, you know, how do you get them on the right track? How do you help them to start to deal with this from wherever it is that they are?
Well, thanks for that question, Guy, and thank you, Carol, for sharing so much of your story and so much of your son and his life. That was very touching, and I learned things that I hadn't learned before. You know, it's a very sensitive, obviously, no matter what stage families are at, it's very sensitive. And I'm just trying to think of the right thing to say in regards to that, because it's really an ebb and a flow, right? It's really about gauging families and where they're at and measuring what it is that they need at that moment. However, you know, one of the first things I do is I mention that we do have a local group of families who are meeting regularly where, you know, you might be able to find some support, you might be able to find some resources and just people to connect with who have been through a similar situation as yourself, you know, walking in those shoes. And more often than not, families, after hearing that, are very interested in meeting other people who have been through this situation. And so someone like Carol, she jumped in right. She jumped, 2 feet in right away and immediately started connecting with other mothers and family members and participating in all the things that we do. And that response is not always the same. It's different for everybody. Everybody grieves in their own way. And then some people get involved for a while and then they step back. Again, it's an ebb and a flow. So, there's always acknowledgement of the suffering. It's for someone like the Joseph Justin family, which you mentioned earlier. Joseph Justin was killed. Actually, his 13th year anniversary is coming up on August 22nd, which the family will be having a press conference, and we will be announcing that later next week. That family was impacted in 2007. It's 13 years later. But because they never found a platform, they never had support. A lot of that experience of them finally finding some kind of support and some kind of outlet is similar to, what Carol's explaining, and is similar to what Jeannie was experiencing, even though Jeannie's, her son's murder was just a few months ago, whereas Carol's was nearly 5 years ago, and, Araya's dad was killed 13 years ago. It's because of that, when families finally find that platform, they begin to emote, right? They begin to kind of transfer that trauma from inside their bodies. And that to me is kind of one of the most important aspects of this work, because when someone is killed and you have the state barring you from speaking and marginalizing you, and the media is not on your side and the community is not on your side, what ends up happening is you become pent up with a lot of emotional, just a lot of emotion that's just convoluted and multi-layered, and it stays in your body. And it affects your psyche, your physical body, your mental state, your relationships, everything. And so when families finally have that outlet where they can meet other people who have been through a similar experience, there is this catharsis that happens, and that's part of healing. And so that's one of the things that I really do hope that we provide for folks like Carol, and it's something that we're continuously moving in the direction of, is that, we know we can't give that person and that family their loved one back. We know that, justice in this criminal legal system, which I refuse to call the criminal justice system because there's no justice in it. It's not like they give it out like snacks. They don't really give justice at all. And so we can't give them justice, but what we can do is we can amplify their experience and their voice and what they want to see happen. So that's where I do see a lot of similarities.
Mm-hmm. And for you, Carol, now that you are engaged with Force Trajectory Project and you're starting to learn about some of the options that you have in pursuing this, if you could see a fairy tale ending, I mean, there's not much fairy tale to this story at all, but if you could see the kind of ending that you would like to see from this, what would that look like?
Well, because of my family being very dysfunctional, I just completed 8th grade, so I don't have a lot of knowledge of a lot of things, but Lisa has brought a up to me in certain things. I'm hoping to get deeper with the legislators and the movements, for the law officers. Want to get done is I see this pretty man's face right here on TV with the video that Lisa's going to work with me. I'm slowing down. It shows my son never had it in his hand, pointed nothing. We go straight down and straight up. I'll be glad when I see that. That will be a day of peace, a day of justice with me. Just like being here today, to know that that young gentleman had a family. He had children. He had sisters. He had brothers. He had a family. This is who he left behind. And that's what people don't realize. Everybody thinks, sometimes they think they're above the law or whatever, but nobody's really above the law. You don't know what's going to happen. A strange family, one of their strange family members get shot. How would they find that cop at that time? They're just trying to bring light to the subject of reality, you know, and being there for others. More accountability. Because when I drove the cat buses, if somebody got injured on our bus or we got any type of accident, we automatically got drug tested. The police don't get drug tested. So now they have to be drug tested. So there's changes coming about, and I want to see more changes. You know, it's one day at a time.
Well, I'm really appreciated having the opportunity to have you come on and talk about this today. And again, that's what the Voices of Humanity show is all about. It really is about what you said when you held up the picture of his family, his brothers, his sisters, his kids, that behind every story that we hear about someone, that there's a lot more to it than that. And that you showed exemplifies why we have this platform. It's for people like you to show a bigger picture.
Just a little pictures. Yeah. The ones of me and him and all of them, you know, and but I'm glad, you know, I mean, like, I keep everything. I've got a picture he made me when he was like in kindergarten. You know, he made with the popsicle sticks and stuff, the house with a little chimney and got a cross in it. You know, so I'm blessed to have kept a lot of things he gave, a lot of things he wrote to me. And I've got books and books of stuff, so I don't throw anything away, and I guess I'm glad I don't now.
Well, again, thank you for taking the time to come on today to share your story, and I wish you nothing but success as you continue on your journey of healing. And as always, Nisa, I appreciate when you bring people over here to share the stories of people who are dying at the hands of police. I have learned so much about this topic as a result of these interviews that we're doing, hearing these stories over and over again. From a very human perspective, and thus the name, Voices of Humanity. And so, although I don't look forward to having more of these interviews, I know I'm going to have more, and we want you all to tune into prconnectionsradio.com, the voice of new media, for the Voices of Humanity show, where we will be talking with other people who have died at the hands of the police, the families, the human element of it. As Carol, when she was showing these pictures of her family today, this is what we want to present to you. As I have mentioned before in these broadcasts, there are sound bites and there are news cycles that run on traditional news, but so often they miss the bigger picture. And so that's what this show is all about. And we will be presenting more Voices of Humanity shows very soon. We'll be talking with other people who are in similar situations to Carol and how they are healing by working together. So everyone out there, you take care of yourselves, be safe, and we'll be back with another broadcast very soon.
Thank you, Guy.
Mm-hmm.